Wah, Malaysia ada hospital-hospital pakar dan pakar-pakar di Malaysia ni ada kelayakan yang tinggi. Ramainya berpelajaran berijazah dari luar negara seperti Australia dan UK. Tak sangkalah saya daripada first world country tau. Medical care okey, tapi saya tak percaya kepada barang makanan buatan Malaysia ya. Jadi saya hanya pilih paket-paket yang datang daripada Australia dan New Zealand sahaja. Video ni tentang Cory dan Wallace daripada negara first world, Canada. Bila mereka masuk ke Malaysia ni, mereka suka satu perkara lah yang paling mereka suka ialah medical care. Sebab medical care di Malaysia ni, mereka kata kepakaran di sini sama macam first world country dan doktor-doktor yang bertauliah ya. Dan juga ada kepakaran ya, training daripada UK, Australia dan sebagainya. Dan mereka dapat buat ujian-ujian ini dalam satu hari. Mereka kata kalau dekat negara mereka akan ambil 6 bulan atau 1 tahun. Lagi satu tu tentang pergigian, dental care. Kalau dekat first world country tu memang mahal ya, mahal sangat. Jadi kat Malaysia ni dia pun heran tau. Dia kata kalau cuci gigi tu, kalau dekat negara dia pembantu atau nurse-nurse yang buat lah, tapi dekat sini dia kata doktor gigi yang buat apa ni semua ya, semua apa-apa prosedur doktor gigi yang buat, dentist yang buat. Jadi mereka puas hati lah dan mereka bagi macam baguslah dia punya feedback kan tentang apa kepakaran doktor-doktor Malaysia ya. Ini hospital-hospital yang ada kelas macam Gleneagles ni semua memang hospital dan duit pun kelas jugalah. Di starting video ni mereka memberi kepujian kepada rakyat Malaysia yang peramah dan ada perkara-perkara yang mereka tidak suka juga. Nanti kita dengarlah ya. Jom kita ke video sekarang.
Hi, I'm Cory.
And I'm Wallace.
And we're an early retired couple that are traveling the world. We spent 3 months in Malaysia, and we're going to kind of give you our feedback as to what we learned, what we liked, what we didn't like so much, just so that you guys have like a better idea if you're thinking of going there.
Number one, things we liked, the people there.
They're incredibly friendly.
Yeah, incredibly friendly and kind. Pretty much everywhere we went in Malaysia, didn't really get as much of that vibe of being sold to all the time, and people were just genuinely really kind, which was just absolutely lovely.
And when it came to, like, I know this doesn't apply to majority of people, but being gluten-free, when it came to eating out, I encountered some amazing service, particularly in Georgetown. But it was just the people who understood gluten-free really did go out of their way to take care of me. So that was really nice.
Absolutely.
And the next thing that we really took advantage of is the medical care. Holy. I am someone who used to work in medical care in Canada. I can't speak highly enough of the medical care in just Malaysia in general. We had watched a lot of videos on medical care in Malaysia in particular, and we had decided that we were going to do like our regular checkups and dental care in Malaysia, and we did, and we do not regret it.
No, the medical tourism in Malaysia is top-notch. We ended up going to Gleneagles Hospital in Kuala Lumpur and did their full comprehensive medical checkup package. So it was all arranged. We made appointments to do it all in one day, and they take you through. Once you register, you go through department to department, and you get everything done. It's so comprehensive. We had blood tests done,
blood, urine, X-ray, chest X-ray. I had a mammogram, both 3D and ultrasound. He had ultrasound as well.
Like abdominal ultrasound, yeah. Cardiac stress test.
I think there's a few other things that we're missing in there. But then, okay, guys, like seriously, we started at 8 in the morning. We were done by 11. We saw the doctor at 2 o'clock.
Yeah, just after lunch.
And she went over all of the results. And we got to keep all the results.
So they take you through department to department. It's very organized. You go from one test to the next, and it's just, they've got such a great system. They run you through everything. And yeah, like Cory said, by 11 o'clock we were done. We, went off to go grab some lunch and just relax for a couple hours. And by 2 o'clock, we're meeting with the doctor in the afternoon, both of us sitting down with the doctor and getting this booklet that's got all your results, like everything that's wrong with you all in one shot, and doctors answering all your questions, telling you next steps, like, oh, you should see
like if you
this
need
type of
follow-up
doctor, or make a referral for this. And coming from Canada, guys, it is so incredibly efficient to do. In Canada, if let's say we weren't feeling well and we went to a doctor and they ended up ordering all these different kinds of tests for us, realistically, 6 to 12 months it would probably take to have all that stuff scheduled and done through our public healthcare system. Now, granted, we did have to pay for this testing in Malaysia. It was not expensive, and not by Canadian standards, and it was all done in one day.
And the other thing that we did vaccines. We did all our travel vaccines there, which I am very thankful for, because had we done that in Canada, it would have been like pulling teeth to get it done in a timely manner. All we had to do was have a doctor consult. We did our vaccines. We had to do them in stages. So we did some vaccines in Kuala Lumpur, and then we did some vaccines in Georgetown. Side note, if you go to Malaysia for medical care, do not go to Georgetown. That hospital was terribly run. We went to the Gleneagles, and it was very much like Canada and very anxious.
It was a very busy day there,
Yeah.
so maybe that's what was causing those issues. But yeah, the Gleneagles in Georgetown was nowhere near as efficient as the one in Kuala Lumpur. So Kuala Lumpur definitely wins. The reason we had to go and split those up is, of course, some of those vaccines you have to do 30 days apart between the first shot and the second shot and so forth. And that's why we ended up having to split those up. We're not entirely done yet. We've still got one round of our rabies vaccine. Dengue fever vaccine that needs to be done. But because of the timing on the second shot, that one we'll end up doing when we are in Thailand.
And the other thing that we took advantage of was dental care. We booked that when we booked it, and 2 days later we were in and doing a cleaning. We just did a cleaning, but it was so easy, and the care was just as top-notch as Canada, and it was super cheap.
Yeah, the quality of the dental care was top-notch, and the actual cleaning itself in Malaysia is not even done by a dental hygienist, because that profession isn't an approved discipline, I guess, in Malaysia. So the actual dental cleaning is done by the dentist himself, or herself in Cory's case. And they were very thorough, checked over we had our x-rays from our dentist in Canada. So they looked all that stuff over, so that they had all the history. And yeah, it was top notch. And again, it was very affordable compared to if you had to pay for that service yourself in Canada.
And yeah, so that's our take on it. And hopefully that helps you guys if you're thinking about doing medical tourism. I wouldn't hesitate.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the other note, if you're worried about the education, a lot of the doctors that we saw were UK based.
Trained.
Or UK and Australia trained.
Yeah.
So
a lot of their medical certificates, hanging on the walls, are from universities. Yeah, in most of them in the UK, as far as I could tell. So very, very high standard of care all around in Malaysia that we encountered.
Kita pasal makanan, si Cory ni kan dia ada banyak alergi tau. Dia ada alergi gluten dan sebagainya lah. Sebab orang yang datang daripada first world country ni selalu dia ada alergi macam-macam tau. Bahkan macam orang Malaysia kita ni kan, walaupun kita ada alergi, kita tak pergi-pergi buat testing alergi sangat lah. Tak berapa famous lah dekat Malaysia ni. Tapi mereka ni dia ada banyak alahan tau, alergi ni, alergi tu. Jadi dia kata paket-paket makanan lah buatan Malaysia ni, dia kata tak ada maklumat terperinci katanya. Jadi dia takut nak makan, dan juga dia kata tak hebat sangat lah makan dekat sini. Macam tu lah ceritanya kan. Tapi dia kata kalau dekat Georgetown tu okey lah, dia ada lah boleh makan. Dan servis orang yang bagi restoran ni, servis provider ni semua dia orang faham pasal gluten free dan sebagainya. Jadi dia dapatlah order makanan dan dia tak ada masalah sangatlah dekat Georgetown.
Things to note if you are gluten free. In Malaysia, they don't have as strict a policy with regards to identifying all the ingredients in packaging or in their
the ingredient labels.
Yeah, so I couldn't trust Malaysian food in general if it was packaged. So a lot of the things I bought were from Australia or New Zealand. They seem to import from that, so I'm thankful for that. But it's a struggle because I would love to have Malaysian food. Part of travel is to discover food. I unfortunately do not get that luxury.
Yeah. And so food for us is one of the things we liked about Malaysia, but also falls on our list of things that weren't as great, especially for Cory. Like she said, some challenges there if you need to be gluten-free or if you have any other dietary issues. We did find the food labeling to be a little lacking compared to what we're used to back home, which did cause some difficulties. As well, like Cory said, finding gluten-free options in KK, like in Sabah in general, was a lot harder. So she had a much tougher time, eating good food on that leg of the trip. Up until then, it had been pretty good, I think.
Georgetown was definitely the highlight with regards to gluten-free food. Again, we were sticking to like more expensive restaurants, which I get, like not everybody can, but if you're gluten-free, it's just kind of one of those unwritten rules that you kind of have to accept that your food cost is just going to be much higher than the average person.
Yeah. The next thing that we did like about Malaysia is that in general, there isn't the same tipping culture.
Itulah kalau kita pergi makan di restoran, kita hanya bayar apa yang terletak dalam bil tu. Harga tu dah campur service charge, government tax, apa semua kita dah ada dalam bil, kita bayar yang itu ajalah. Tapi kalau di negara mereka tu, selain daripada bil tu, dia ada tip untuk service charge lagi. Dan baru-baru ni dah melampau pula katanya hampir 20 atau 25% di Amerika dan di Amerika Utara. Itu dah tinggi sangat kan. Jadi dia kata kalau dekat sini ni, Cory bagi tahu dia tak rasa tertekan sangat lah sebab tak tahulah bil tu kan. Bil tu bila dah makan tu harganya sangat tinggi ya. Jadi dia kata lebih selesa lah kalau keluar bersia-sia dan makan di sini hanya tengok bil dan bayar itu sahaja.
That we have back home. So it's nice to be able to go out to a restaurant and, they've got, any applicable government taxes, but also any service charge already, automatically just attached to the bill, whether it was, I think, 10% or 15%, and it's just across the board, order off the menu, here's your bill, and that's what you can expect to pay. And I don't know about you, Cory, but I like that I find the tipping culture in North America in general, Canada and the United States, has gotten really out of hand, where these suggested minimum tips now can start at 20%, depending on the restaurant you go to, even if the service isn't great. And honestly, it's just really frustrating to deal with that kind of culture.
That was always something that I struggled with in Canada because I find it stressful because you're like, how much do you tip? Here, you just don't need to worry about it. So it's really nice.
Yeah.
The next thing that we really enjoyed is the cheap Grab rides.
Bagaimana pula dengan kereta Grab ya? Selalunya dia kata kereta Grab kat sini ialah tak tahulah mereka ke atau semua pelancong yang datang sini ada masalah macam ni, saya tak tahu. Tapi mereka bagi tahu kita macam dia kena tunggu lama lah pasal Grab ni kan. Dia kata kadang dia kena cancel pula. Tapi dia ada tanya orang tempatan kena bayar tip ke Grab driver ni? Orang kata tak payah bayar tip. Ada driver-driver Grab yang baik kan, dia orang ada cerita pasal tempat ni, tempat tu dan ada bagi banyak maklumat. Jadi daripada hati dia lah yang ikhlas tu dia nak bagi tip pada dia lah, bukan tip masuk akaun Grab sebab nanti dia orang akan potong kan. Jadi dia kata bayar terus sajalah. Tapi ada perkara yang dia bagi tahu tentang Grab driver ni, adalah yang bawa laju-laju ke apa saya tak tahu. Tapi ada yang break tiba-tiba tu, dia kata ada macam tu juga. Dan apa gunanya seat belt kat belakang tu? Dia kata tak ada undang-undang yang tegas lah yang kata okey kena pakai seat belt ni, macam tu.
Now with Grab rides, we asked when we first got there, we asked a couple of people with regards to tipping because the Grab rides, after you're done the ride, it'll ask for a tip. And we did ask, I think 3 or 4 locals, and they're like, no, don't. It seems to be something that Grab is trying to implement. I mean, if you get like a really good Grab driver, like we did tip if we had somebody that was really chatty or
like really extra friendly.
Or we just like clicked with, we did tip. But on the whole, we just generally did not.
Yeah, so the Grab app, it says right on there that 100% of the tip goes to the driver, but we did talk to a couple, and that doesn't seem to be the case. It seems like Grab is taking a pretty sizable cut of that tip as well. So maybe, if you do want to make sure your tip goes entirely to the driver, tip in cash and not through the app, that might be a little better off because then your driver's actually going to get more of that money.
Now, on the flip side of grab rides, the thing to note is over on this side of the world, safety isn't quite to the standards of Canada. There was more than a couple of cab rides where getting the seatbelt was next to impossible, so we didn't end up wearing a seatbelt.
Like they would purposefully have the seatbelt
like
in the back seat. Yeah, like rigged so that they're unusable, which makes for a little nerve-wracking of a ride, especially because those drivers also tended to not be great drivers, fairly aggressive, fairly abrupt braking, and so yeah, there's some close calls.
But that's just part of being over here. You just kind of have to go with it.
And the other thing on the con list for Malaysia specifically, Grab and Gojek in general are great platforms, really easy ride, hailing platforms. They're convenient, they're relatively very cheap and affordable. But in Malaysia in particular, we ended up having to wait a lot longer than usual for a Grab to even pick up your ride and then actually show up to pick you up. Multiple times, we were waiting 15 plus minutes for a driver to arrive to our pickup point, which is on average the longest we've had to wait in any country for a ride-hailing app. And also, when we were in KK, coming back from the Sepalok, Kinabatangan River Safari, when we came back to the airport, that was the first time where, for like multiple times, and also not just for us, but our new friends that we made there on the way back, couldn't even get a Grab ride.
I forgot about that.
Yeah. So they were so busy that there were no drivers available, and the app would cycle through waiting for a driver, and then it would just cut off and fail because no one was available. And we tried that a bunch of times, and couldn't actually get a ride. So that was the one time we actually had to go back into the airport and pay a little bit extra to take one of the local airport taxis, which we generally try to avoid. So, one of the things though that we didn't like.
Lagi-lagi kes sampah merata-rata. Katanya dekat Georgetown ni teruk sangat. Tak teruk sangat di KL, tapi di Georgetown dan di KK, Kota Kinabalu, sampah merata-rata. Dan mengikut maklumat mereka, kata mereka nampak orang tempatan ke? Mereka tahu ke tu orang tempatan? Saya tak tahu. Tapi dia kata sambil mereka berjalan tu, mereka buang sampah. Jadi sampah jadi banyak. Dan mereka risau tahu. Pasal itulah mereka nak buat taruh vaksin rabies tu. Rabies tu tikus kan, datang daripada tikus. Jadi mereka was-was lah nak bervaksin kan, memang betul tau. Jadi tak boleh lah sampah merata-rata. Kita kena jugalah tengok perkara ni. Kalau saya yang duduk di negeri Perak ni pun, kebelakangan ni saya tengok banyak sampah berlonggok sana sini. Dulu tak adalah sangat macam ni, tapi kebelakangan ni saya tengok banyak sampah tau. Dekat tepi-tepi bawah jalan ni semua sampah. Bila mereka dah datang potong rumput di bawah jalan tu, baru nampak semua sampah plastik penuh. Siapalah yang buat sampah macam ni? Aduh, letih lah kita nak cerita pasal sampah ni.
In general about Malaysia was we did notice more trash and garbage everywhere on the streets, in particular. Kuala Lumpur wasn't as bad, but I found Georgetown and Kota Kinabalu to be a lot worse for that, which was unfortunate. Just a lot of garbage, a lot of plastic garbage. And we're not even talking garbage washed up on the shores at the beach, which, you can't hold, the country accountable for that because that's washing up from the ocean from, wherever else in the region. But even just on the streets, a lot more garbage than I expected to see, having come from Singapore, having gone to Hong Kong for a bit. We've been in Thailand, we've been in Vietnam, and I feel like there was more trash on the streets in general than I'd expected.
I would have to parrot that. One thing I did notice was the lack of garbage cans. Now, I'm not talking like out on the street or anything like that. There was every time we went to a mall, trying to find a garbage can was really hard. And I know that they have garbage issues, and I don't know their system very well, so I don't know what they do with the garbage. So that could be part of it, but it is just a really unfortunate thing, and it doesn't seem like the locals seem to have a lot of knowledge about that, because we did see it time after time of locals just dropping garbage as they're walking. And I'm talking like water bottles,
Plastic
just
bag,
whatever they're
yeah.
holding, just drop it and keep walking. So it did result in a lot of garbage, and it
Yeah, and
definitely not clean.
no, and to me that's just heartbreaking because Malaysia is a beautiful, beautiful country. So to see its own people just literally walk, down the street, finishing their beverage and just dropping the container as they walk along, that's heartbreaking to me to see that because you guys, like, it is a beautiful, beautiful place, and it could be just so much more beautiful with just some changes to those kind of systems to be able to, help control that amount of waste. But
Yeah, that seems like a government thing that needs to change, and we're just mentioning it. We're not trying to change the world or anything.
because we can't.
It's just something that we truly noticed.
For things that weren't necessarily the greatest, bathrooms in public spaces.
Perkara bilik air basah. Memanglah kita dekat sini kan pakai air banyak di bilik air kan. Kita kalau tak ada air tak boleh. Ni kita lah punya tempat kita di Malaysia ni kan. Orang Malaysia pakai air. Jadi mereka ni tak senang sikit lah tentang bilik air basah. Itu satu perkara. Perkara yang last yang mereka cerita tu adalah tentang air panas. Air panas dia kata tak ada air panas dekat negara mereka tu. Dia ada pipe kan, panas dan sejuk. Mereka nak cuci pinggan mangkuk lah kalau dia orang duduk kat hotel ataupun Airbnb ni semua mereka nak air panas. Tapi kita ni pakai air sejuk. Sebab negara kita kan panas. Semua panas. Air panas, cuaca panas, semua panas. Macam mana ni? Jadi mereka nak air panas. Ada tempat yang ada air panas kan, dual tu. Tempat mandi bilik air adalah air panas, tapi ini air panas, semua air panas, nak air panas. Okey. So itulah cerita Cory dan Wallace yang daripada Canada. Ada yang apa yang mereka suka dan apa yang mereka tak berapa senang di Malaysia. Tapi tak apalah, kita akan perbaiki ya. Kalau ada benda-benda yang kita kena perbaiki tu, kita perbaikilah. Okey, terima kasih datang ke Wallace Klasik lagi sekali, dan terima kasihlah pada semua yang sokong channel saya. Selamat berpuasa, jaga diri sebab dah nak berhari raya ya. Jadi berjaga-jagalah ya, dan selamat bershopping, beli baju-baju raya. Dan kalau boleh saya nak buat video raya ni tau, sebab saya tengok ada banyak baju raya yang cantik-cantik di luar sana. Jadi keluar bersama-sama lah. Kalau orang sibuk tengah bershopping, kita yang non-Muslim ni pun sibuk lah pergi tengok orang shopping dan berseronok. Itulah dia Malaysia. Terima kasih. Bye-bye.
When you're sometimes at the mall or, whatever, just be warned.
Yeah.
They can be a little sketchy.
So if you're not in like a really touristy area, like Petronas Towers, KL Towers, stuff like that, those are really touristy. They're really clean. You don't have to worry about that. Get outside of that, and I got to the point where I wasn't touching anything. Like I would kick the door closed and kind of like try to hold it closed while I went to the bathroom because it was kind of scary. I know maybe I'm just too much of a pansy, but there's one thing I like is a clean bathroom.
Yeah,
so.
I mean, first world problems, right? Like
Yes.
we are very lucky to come from a part of the world where we come from, where those kind of standards are definitely a little bit higher. But yeah, a couple times I'd walk into a public bathroom and everything is wet, like wet. You walk, the walls are wet, the toilet, and the walls of the cubicle are just covered in water, and you don't know if it's water because they just hosed everything down or something else. Just saying, be warned, and just be prepared for that. So the final thing on our list of things that, not necessarily things that we didn't like, just things that caught us off guard, is the lack of hot water. So all the places that we were staying would have hot water in the showers. They would have like little portable, like those little hot water tanks, like hot water on demand for the shower, which is fantastic. We've never had any issues there. What caught us off guard is that both the bathroom and the kitchen sinks would just have one water temperature, and that would be tepid. Not hot at all, no hot water period, not even cold water, which was something that honestly I took for granted coming from Canada and having nice ice cold, drinking water straight out of the tap. But yeah, that did cause some challenges.
The hardest part was cleaning dishes. It's a lot like camping. So we got to the point where we were boiling water
In a kettle,
and just like washing our dishes that way, because washing a oily pan without hot water, nearly impossible to get it clean. We're used to camping. It's not new to us. Just it's a little extra work. And also one thing that we took to is buying bleach and making sure that we had that on hand so that if we were feeling at all uncomfortable with like the cleanliness, we could bleach the counters, stuff like that.
Yeah, a lot of times we would be cooking chicken and fish and things like that, and when you don't have hot water to properly wash the dishes after, raw chicken, of course, you don't want salmonella poisoning or worse. So yeah, a little bit of small bottle of bleach from the grocery store, so at least we could disinfect everything properly.
So yeah, that is one thing that I've literally always taken for granted. I assumed it would be no different here. we've learned our ways, and it seems like it's very, very common throughout Southeast Asia because we're just booked a place in Vietnam and it's going to be the same.
Yeah.
So now we know how to handle it. But
And now you know as well.
yeah, I think that's like our top list when it comes to mind of like what we've learned.
Yeah, I think that pretty well covers it. Bottom line, what do you think of Malaysia overall?
I absolutely loved Malaysia. I wouldn't go back to Borneo for such a long time, but beyond that, I would 100% go back.
Absolutely agreed. I loved Malaysia. It was beautiful. There's lots to see and do. The people are amazing. The food is fantastic. And 100%, we will be back.
Yeah.